Welcome to Schweitzer Drive, a podcast where we explore what goes on between the generation of electricity and the light switch. Join Dave Whitehead as he interviews the entrepreneurs, innovators, and experts who are inventing the future of electric power.
Hi, I'm Dave Whitehead, CEO at Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. I pulled the topic for today's episode straight from the news, the recent attack on the Colonial Pipeline. And just as a side note, we were coming up with this idea about a week and a half ago. And of course, last week there was the JBS meatpacking cyber attack that happened. So this is certainly a topical point and discussion. My guest today is Samantha Madrid, the Vice President of Security, Business, and Strategy at Juniper Networks, a leader in the development of IT and networking solutions. Samantha has more than 20 years of experience in the enterprise business-to-business security market in roles from product management to marketing to sales and engineering. Hi, Samantha, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Dave. Thank you for having me.
And I was doing my homework, getting ready for this podcast, and I was going through your bio. I also saw you majored in political science, and now you're leading cybersecurity business groups all around the world. How did you make the leap from political science to cybersecurity?
Well, I've always had an affinity for computers. I likened that back to a child loving spy films like James Bond, and I've always had that affinity for Q specifically and all those gadgets. So I just kind of followed my instincts, my love of computers and solving tough problems, and I just found myself in cybersecurity.
I agree with you. I think Q is the hero of those movies. Where would James Bond be without all the cool cars and all the other gadgets?
Exactly. If we all had a Q.
That is exactly right. All right, so let me set the stage. On May 7th, the Colonial Pipeline suffered a malware attack which forced the shutdown of their entire system. The attack halted the pipeline's operation, and it is believed to be carried out by a ransomware criminal enterprise called DarkSide, and not a nation state. According to Politico, it was believed to be the largest successful cyber attack on oil infrastructure in the country's history. So, of course, the obvious question is, how were the bad guys or bad actors able to cause the pipeline to shut down? How'd they get in? And how did that result in gas to stop flowing?
Right. Well, I think the Colonial Pipeline attack is an example of how cybersecurity affects everybody. Bad actors, whether they're a nation-sponsored state or in business for themselves, look for weaknesses and opportunities to exploit those weaknesses. And so fundamentally, the key here is, we need to gain broader scope of visibility. We need to expand our awareness around intelligence and enforcement. And it really needs to be at everywhere and every point of connection within the network. And within the technology that's deployed, as well as for processes that employees use, is truly critical.
Yeah, that's interesting. We talk about the technologies and what we can do. I think I've seen you write down that technology is one thing, but probably the weakest link, though, are the people that are using the systems. Do you agree with that, or?
Well, you know what it is. Users oftentimes are just trying to do the best they can, and they're there to do their jobs. And like with erasers on pencils, sometimes we make mistakes. And when you kind of go after the individual users, you can often exploit that through common tactics such as social engineering, which is, has been a long-standing effective method of compromise in infiltrating a network, getting someone to click on a link, inadvertently providing their username and password. So I think we need to kind of think about ways where we can remove users from the equation in order to better secure our environments.
Yeah, that's interesting. And thinking a little bit more about users and systems, certainly at Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories, our focus really is on the OT side. And generally, other than some HMIs and stuff, it's really machine-to-machine communication and networking system. And our focus has certainly been on the OT side. And when I think about the Colonial Pipeline side, I think, moving gas from Texas up to the East Coast is really an OT type of operation. So I scratch my head a little bit. If the bad actors got into the IT side of the Colonial business systems, why do you think the OT side was impacted?
Well, OT and IT are intertwined. They send and receive data to and from each other, and they're not completely separate any longer. There are a lot of operational benefits because systems such as billings and payments and support can be automated. But when systems are connected, that theoretically means there is a way for attackers to get to those systems. So the more systems and applications are connected, the more vigilant security measures need to be.
I heard one report that said out of abundance of caution, they shut down the OT side of the pipeline, right, the operational side, just to be on the safe side. So I think about what could have been done maybe to allow gas to continue to flow, but go ahead and take care of the problems that were on the IT side. Were there maybe some different strategies that Colonial could have considered, or what do you think we should do in this regard, the IT versus the OT and the protecting them both sides from cyber?
Right. So for me, security strategy should absolutely include both OT and IT. However, the tactics will need to be different. For example, the threat intelligence needed on the IT side is different than on the OT side. OT also usually needs hardened platforms and modular software with containerized backup nodes. Another example would be that the technologies used to detect and respond to these attacks are different as well. Endpoint agents on the IT side are commonplace, and IT ops can use those agents to thwart, compromise, and potentially take a user's access or entire endpoint offline. This is a no-go in OT environments, and in many cases, systems cannot be taken offline. And OT and endpoints such as substations or PLCs cannot be equipped with agents like we use on our laptops or mobile phones. The network itself, the individual points of connection become more important for detecting and containing an attack. So using the network is what Juniper Connected Security is all about. We're really striving to extend security to every point of the connection on the network, so you are building a threat-aware network. And so what we do is Juniper sends our threat intelligence from our ATP cloud, which is our threat intelligence hub, to our firewalls. But more importantly, we also send that stuff to the routing and switching infrastructure, so attacks can be detected earlier and the network can take an active role in its own defense. And then we couple that specifically with our security director, which is our centralized management and unified policy to provide that complete visibility and unified policy and orchestration across all the varying types of deployments and architecture types. So our customers are in a much better position to defend both their IT and their OT environments. And so for us, Juniper Connector Security is a big piece of the technology used in our partnership with you guys. And so the whole idea behind the Converge Industrial Edge is to really address the cybersecurity aspects and control and compliance requirements that we're seeing for these advanced OT and IT environments, whether that's environmentally hardening and centralized managing a solution from a security perspective.
So that's interesting. You take a look at what's going on in the network across various points on say a customer system, bring that information out, and then you can mediate or try to address the challenges that are happening on a particular network. Do you also take in information, maybe anonymize it from different customers then? Is there some data sharing between customers? I would think that, if one pipeline was getting hit, maybe another one is getting hit or something like that, and using, some wide area information or certainly some diverse information to make better decisions on what might be happening in the cyber environments across, say, an entire country that is made up of individual companies.
Absolutely. That's one of the benefits of our Global Threat Intelligence Hub, but it's not a requirement because we recognize that some of our customers function in very sensitive parts of the network and are in sensitive sectors, and in which case aspects of the network or the entire network can't participate in those. So it doesn't necessarily diminish its overall capability or efficacy. And so when we kind of think about what we embarked on together with the Converged Industrial Edge architecture, we really wanted to maintain privacy and confidentiality, but at the same time, we wanted to open up a converged ecosystem of data sharing. And we really wanted to address three main objectives. So we wanted to enhance the reliability and resilience of energy infrastructure using cloud native technologies is number one. The second thing is we wanted to centralize what you can and what you can distribute and what you must distribute. And this is where the kind of global threat intelligence piece comes into play. And then I think most importantly, which often gets left out or is unintended, sometimes an afterthought, was operationalizing everything. And so for us, one of the main objectives was how do we reduce the complexity so that we can improve your overall cybersecurity posture and then reduce the operational expense? Because just because you have to do more or expand your scope doesn't mean it should burden you on an operational aspect.
What do you see as the opportunities for reducing complexity? Most of the times I see is how we discover a vulnerability or a threat vector and we put a Band-Aid on top of that, and then we find another and there's another Band-Aid and so on and so forth. I love the idea of reducing complexity. What might be some examples of those?
So I think the big thing, anytime you embark on a new architecture, one of the things that I have seen historically throughout my career is security is manageability, whether that is just simple policy management, orchestration, or automation, is not built into kind of the base architecture, which I think is a missed opportunity for being able to successfully operationalize. And one of the things we're starting to see is when you start to decentralize networks and you're trying to take advantage of distributed services, architectures, not having the ability to bridge between your existing architectures with your new architectures shifts the burden onto the customer and makes it creates an opportunity, I should say, for bad actors to take advantage of a potential blind spot. So for me, I think it's critical that when we build reference architectures, when we bring together a solution to address a specific problem or an entire network's new posture, we really have to think about bridging old with the new and being able to leverage your existing operational efficiencies by transitioning them to either new locations. Maybe it's a cloud environment, maybe it's geographic new location, but you need to be able to bridge those two, and you can't start from scratch. I often talk about it internally with the team. We have to make sure that we are supporting an and strategy for our customers, not an or, because no environment is ever going to start from scratch. No environment is going to throw out their existing investments. You have to be able to bridge the two.
Yeah, here internally, I like to use the phrase, the beauty of the and, right? It's not an or. Or usually doesn't get you where you need to be. And is let's do this and that. And the magic happens when you can do both. Diving down a little bit, I'm an engineer, so I love being a little bit technical. I know you've commented on the concepts of zero trust and micro segmentation. Maybe expand a little bit on those. I'll make an argument that the internet was initially flawed, from the folks working at Berkeley connecting up various universities, where there was just an implied trust, because it was just professors sending around, papers to each other. And that has been our biggest challenge as an industry, right, is building off those. There was implied trust, and now we go to the concept of zero trust.
Yeah, and it's funny, is just that, I think Zero trust in concept, no one would argue with, but I think operationalizing it has been a challenge for a lot of customers. Because what you're basically saying is, in addition to the security you have at your functional gateway, and I use functional gateway as a term because a gateway is anything that you authenticate to, right? That's effectively a gateway. And so we've largely focused on these functional gateways versus, what we talk to now in terms of application to application or, server to server. And these east-west communications are the harder of the two, because where previously you were building policy around those IP addresses and specific VLANs, now what you're having to do is identifying roles and responsibility tied to not only the identity of the application in the segmented system, but also to the users with accessing those systems. And that's a very difficult thing to put into operation. And so where I see a lot of opportunity is enabling that transition for customers, because a lot of times customers buy into the concept of zero trust. They look to a vendor to help them, but then they stop at those functional gateways, and then that east-west traffic becomes a free-for-all once you get inside the data center.
Yeah, it's a great challenge, and I'll say opportunity, right? I think I agree with you. Everybody subscribes to zero trust, and then you get down the road of initial trust and all that fun stuff to actually deploying secure systems.
Yeah, and a lot of analysts are calling it identity-based segmentation now. And so it's gone from, I've heard so many different terms, right? There's zero trust, there's segmentation, there's micro-segmentation, there's nano-segmentation, and now there's identity-based segmentation. But I think putting all those terms aside, what you're trying to do is saying, what is this system for? Who has access to this system? And do I have the right permissions around it?
You're spot on. So now we've gone down deep. Let's step back just a little bit, going back to say the bigger picture, and getting back to the Colonial discussion. Ransomware is now big business. I think every week you hear about somebody that has their systems compromised, whether it's the meatpacking folks, the pipeline, the hospitals down in San Diego. You step back and you scratch your head and you ask yourself, what can be done? Can we get ahead of these attacks? Will the good guys always be playing catch up to the bad guys, or do we just shut everything off because it's just too risky to be using the internet or modern networks?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't, for me, ransomware is indeed big business, and it will continue to be as long as there are opportunities, right? So my advice really is to make it harder on the attackers. So you have to be thoughtful in how you approach that. So first and foremost, this is back to basics, right? Backups. Back up your data frequently. Use threat intelligence and participate if you can with telemetry, because the kind of the network effect just benefits you. Block connections from unknown, attack servers, IP addresses, malicious URLs, etc. And employ email protections. I mean, this is basic stuff, Dave, but you'd be surprised how much that is not being used currently, because most of the entry points a lot of times are just very basic phishing campaigns, right? Where you've been able to successfully exploit the endpoint and gain access to someone's credentials, and or credential chaining, right? People aren't changing their passwords and they're utilizing someone's password at the same time, and then looking to see where are those logins coming from. And then additionally, I would say, we have to automate our initial responses in order to limit the blast radius. I mean, we have to enable the network to be able to quickly detect and limit access to systems and kind of siphon off anything that looks suspicious. If I didn't believe fundamentally that we could get ahead of attackers, I wouldn't still be in the cybersecurity industry. But I do believe that in doing this, though, we have to take all three pillars into consideration: people, processes, and the technology.
Yeah.
So, some of the things that seem so basic, but we don't often do that.
And then just stepping back a little bit, the examples I was just talking about were done by criminals. Of course, there's nation states out there that would like to have access and control critical infrastructure. From your perspective, which is the bigger concern, the professional criminals or nation states, or does it matter at all? It's a challenge either way.
Well, nation state actors are always a concern, especially for critical infrastructure, but they make up a small percentage of attacks. Professional criminals, however, or what we've heard called now the secret criminal nerd syndicates, make up from about 99% of the attacks we're seeing. And these attacks are the bigger concern. We have no hope of defending against nation state attacks if we don't address the professional criminal attacks that are happening around. The tools and methods to defend against these guys are slightly different than against the nation state actors. And so simply because professional criminals are hacking on a budget, they're out for profit and don't necessarily care as much if they eventually get caught, if they were successful enough to make money.
As you pointed out, we got to be concerned about both of them. Certainly the tyranny of the immediate are the professional criminals, and shutting those folks down, I think, will give us our short-term biggest bang for the buck.
Yeah, but by no means should we take our eyes off anybody, right?
Oh, no.
So.
Oh, no, right? This is you look at it, the networks and the internet and all that provide a lot of value to us, right? But you also assume a lot of risk by opening everything up too, right? So it's you end up crying in your beer over all these challenges, or you can look at it the other way and say, look at all the opportunities we have to allow people to do their jobs efficiently, allow control systems to operate electric power systems or pipelines, but be able to do it in a secure manner that makes all our lives better. So there's a tremendous opportunity for all of us to secure our networks and make sure we get it right.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Samantha, thank you very much. This is a topic I'm sure we could talk for the next 6 hours on, and still not solve all the problems, but certainly have a better understanding of what opportunities are out there for securing critical infrastructure and IT systems and what have you. So again, thank you very much for being here today, and look forward to future conversations.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. Thank you for having me, and thanks for being such a great partner. Our teams are very excited to work together, and I look forward to future conversations as well.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for stopping by Schweitzer Drive. Join us again as we learn about, explore, and celebrate electric power. For more information about the show, please visit selinc.com/Schweitzer Drive.